The building of the Royal Mail Ship, or RMS Titanic, began in the city of Belfast, Ireland, in the early 1900s. In 1911, Belfast experienced its greatest economic boom in history. Unlike other Irish cities, whose economy generally centered on trade, land, or lineage, Belfast's wealth was acquired heavily through industry. Industries such as engineering, rope making, distilling, tobacco, and many more are what set Belfast apart and what ultimately propelled Belfast into further economic prosperity. However, the industry whose achievements brought international fame to the city was, you guessed it, shipbuilding. Shipbuilding was an incredibly profitable industry because at this time before air travel, the only way to cross the Atlantic Ocean was by steamship. The contract to begin building the Titanic, along with her two sister ships, was signed July 31st, 1908 by J. Bruce Ismay. The company, White Star Line, announced the building of these new ships in response to competition from the recently built Cunard liners. Whatever new developments were made in the Cunard liners, the White Star liners had to be better. White Star Line, Cunard, as well as other luxury ship liners at this time, were in a race to construct the biggest and best steamships. At the completion of the White Star Line's new trio of ships, the Olympic, Titanic, and Britannic, Belfast owned the largest and most luxurious ships the world had ever seen.
The Titanic was a huge ship being 883 feet long, 92 feet wide, and weighing 52,000 tons. The ship was 170 feet tall from the back to the top of it, almost 35 feet of which were below the waterline. The part of the ship that was above the water was taller than most urban buildings in that time period. The Titanic was the largest ever movable man-made object. Because of this, the ship was named Unsinkable. The Titanic was built by the company Harland and Wolff, which was owned by Lord Peary, who was a friend of Bruce Ismay, who was a managing director of the White Star Line. The Titanic had 16 watertight compartments. Each door was designed to close if the water rose to a certain point or an emergency closed electronically from a bridge. The ship was supposed to stay afloat if any two sections flooded in. There were 6 boiler rooms, which contained 24 double-ended boilers and 5 single-ended boilers. The Titanic had 3 propellers, which were powered by steam, and rotation powered the ship through the sea. The Titanic was the most luxurious liner of the time. The first-class staterooms were extravagantly furnished, while third-class passengers remarked that their cabins were like second-class cabins on any other ship. The total cost of the Titanic was $7.5 million.
The Titanic embarked for its maiden voyage on April 2nd until April 15th, 1912. The Titanic sank and Carpathia picked up to set for New York on the 15th. The Titanic was built in Belfast and from there was moved to Southampton, England. From Southampton, they started their voyage onto Cherbourg, France, and then to Queenstown, Ireland. On April 2nd, the Titanic leaves dock for sea trials, which includes tests of speed, turns, and any emergency stops. On April 10th, they eventually set on their voyage. They arrived in Southampton, and later that afternoon, it begins its voyage until Cherbourg. Once they reach Cherbourg, they pick up more passengers for its voyage, and they later reach Queenstown the next day on April 11th. From Queenstown, they were supposed to go to New York, but that evening they sank.
Although the wireless operators have received several ice warnings from other ships in the area, on the night of April 14th, the Titanic continued to rush through the darkness in full steam. At 11:35 p.m., the lookout spotted a massive iceberg less than a quarter of a mile off the bow of the ship. Immediately, the engines were thrown into reverse and the rudder turned hard left. Because of the tremendous mass of the ship, slowing and turning took an incredible distance more than that available. At 11:40, without enough distance to alter her course, the Titanic sideswept the iceberg, damaging nearly 300 feet of the right side of the hull, above and below the waterline. The damage caused by the collision allowed water to flood 6 of 16 major watertight compartments. As water rushed into the starboard side of the ship's bow, the ship began to tilt down in front and slightly to the right. By midnight, water in the damaged compartments began to spill over into others because the compartments were watertight only horizontally and the walls extended only a few feet. Flooding progressed until at about 2:10, the bow of the ship was underwater and the stern was lifted out of the water. Because of the tremendous weight of the 3 large propellers in the stern of the ship, the stresses in the ship's midsection increased immensely. At an angle of 45 degrees or more, the stresses in the midsection exceeded the ultimate stresses of steel, and the steel failed. Stresses at the failure were estimated at nearly 15 tons per square inch. What survivors at the disaster then described was a loud noise that sounded like breaking china falling equipment. By 2:12, the bow and the stern attached by only the inner bottom structure. The stern angled high out of the water. The bow dangled beneath, continued to fill the water. At 2:18, when the bow reached a weight of about 16,000 tons, it ripped loose from the stern. Free from the weight of the bow, the stern rose again sharply to almost vertical position. Slowly filling with water, the stern began to sink into the water. At 2:20, the stern slid beneath the surface. At 2:29, the bow struck the bottom of the ocean. The stern crashed into the ocean floor 27 minutes later.
The traumatic sinking of the Titanic captured the attention of the whole planet. This event caused many future ships to be built and structured differently than previous ones. Modern shipbuilders have added double-sided frames to ships, which prevents the body of the ship from getting punctures that may cause major damage. They have also raised transverse dividing walls, which are used as barriers between compartments to prevent any water from spilling over the top of the ship if it were tilted at an angle. There have also been many safety regulations which were established after the sinking of the Titanic. Mandatory use of the electronic communication, which includes any transfer of signs, signals, writings, images, sounds, or data transferred by radio or an electromagnetic system, has been added. Another safety regulation includes setting a minimum lifeboat capacity. There has also been an addition of developing the ice patrol to provide an early warning for ships that may have any ice fields in their region. These changes in safety and design for ships have been made effective and decrease the amount of accidents in the sea.